Hey, this is Super Dale. Okay, so who are the 5 worst paramotor instructors in the United States that totally suck, man? Well, what is the job of a paramotor instructor? What's their actual job? Okay, should be pretty simple. A good instructor is the one that's going to give you proper skills before you fly and build you into a skilled and competent pilot so you know when and where to fly, how to fly, understand the sport, and have incredibly good skills and are prepared with the best and safest gear so that all the odds are stacked in your favor. So that is what an instructor's job is to teach you properly and prepare you properly with the correct gear. So who are the 5 worst paramotor instructors in the United States that are causing the most serious injuries and deaths through their sheer incompetence and dishonesty and failure to do those specific things? Well, the 5 are, well, if I list them, you can just say, wah, bull crap, you're just talking. So let's go through the specifics so you can actually search for yourself, research what I'm saying like an intelligent person, because you should never just believe what anyone says in the sport. Listen to what they say, then research it and figure out if what they're saying is actually accurate. So what is the job of the instructor? To build your skills. Now, does that person have skills to actually teach? So the first thing you're going to look for is the skill of the instructor. Do you see any videos of them kiting up a pole and standing on top with one foot and balancing there perfectly? Do you see their assistant instructors doing the same things? Do you see them reverse kiting no hands out there, no problem, demonstrating that they can do such things like you see super students do? Can they knock out 10 run-and jumps in a row like a super student has to do before we even let them fly? It's kind of crazy, but most people out there acting as instructors literally can't even do what brand new super students can do. They wouldn't even pass the class because they don't have even the most basic skills. So number one, you got to look at the skill of who you're talking to. So if you call up a school, find out who your instructor is going to be. I mean, you're trusting your life to these people. You better freaking find out who the heck it is you're trusting your life to, and then look them up on YouTube. Look at their skills. Or just ask them directly, hey, send me a video that shows you doing all the things I see, Super Dell students doing. He says you can't kite up a pole, and he says you can't reverse kite no hands or do 10 run-and jumps in a row, and, all these different things that super students can do. Just ask them. Either they can produce a video and show that they can do what super students can do, or they can't. So if they can't, how are they going to teach you real actual skills that they themselves don't have? Number 2, easy way, ask them to prove their students are doing it. So if they can't do it, the odds of their students doing it are almost nothing. I mean, it is not happening. But check. It's very simple. It really has nothing to do with opinion. Look up world's best paramotor training. Look at all the videos of super students, because they're the best, is what all comes up, and compare the skill of my students to the skill of their instructor and the skill of their students. Either the skills are similar or they're not. Either they're training people properly and building in those skills, or they're not. Skill is skill. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no opinion to it. You either have the skills. But the dishonest people will actually try and trash talk skills, so I could even go into more depth on things like that. They'll be like, oh, what do you need to be able to reverse kite for with no hands? Wait, you don't do that in the sky. Yeah, if you can't reverse kite with no hands, you can't kite in light winds. Because if all you're doing is pulling brakes, well, pulling brakes creates drag. What happens if you pull brakes in light winds? You stall the glider. So if you don't have proper glider control, you simply can't do it in light winds. And you can't do it in high winds. What happens when you pull brakes? It creates drag. So if you don't know how to weight shift properly and can't demonstrate that you can weight shift or control the glider with no hands, reverse kiting and forwards, then you don't understand the basics of how to control the glider, and you severely limit what you can do. And it's a major safety issue, because if you get into high winds, all you're going to do is jerk brake and probably weight shift backwards, since you don't know how to do it. That means you're going to get drug on your face and very easily injured or killed. So skills are skills are skills. Look at the videos, compare skill for skill. You gotta be a little sharper than the average turnip truck when you're getting into aviation. If you just go to Joe Jimmy Bob because he was close to you and think, oh, he's an instructor, he must know what he's doing, yeah, you're not really thinking through things clearly. You've got to look at the skills. Okay, next, look at the skills of the students and the instructor. Then that instructor needs to stack the odds in your favor. They need to be setting you up with the proper gear. Now, the proper gear, there's only one paramotor. That's a flat top paramotor, and I get into those specifics in a second. And then there's many different certified gliders. The Dominator's the best, as you can see from the facts. Again, look at videos of the Dominator. Look at other gliders try to achieve what you can see done with the Dominator. So Dominator's glider, awesome. But that doesn't mean it's the only glider on the planet. There are other safe gliders. The problem is, while it's easy to make a safe glider, and it's easy to make a performance glider, it's not easy to make a performance glider safe. So here the Dominator is kicking the crap out of their uncertified class gliders for performance, while it's beating the safety of their safest gliders. So it's like, if you just buy a safe glider, it'll probably suck so bad and be no fun to fly that you'll end up selling it in 6 months and buying some death trap because you think you have to do that to get performance. That's where that Dominator comes into play. But anyway, Dominator's awesome glider. There's other gliders, but the glider, look at the glider. There's people out there selling totally uncertified class gliders to brand new students. Gliders like the, Dudek and like the Mac Charger or the Mac Colorado. If they're putting people on total death trap gliders they call reflex, well, that person gets a complete flunk for an instructor, because they're literally not stacking the odds in your favor. They're stacking the odds against you as much as is possible to stack against you. So I've got many videos on that, but it's very, very simple. Try and look up collapse testing on Hoaxflex death trap gliders that they call reflex. Try and find videos where people are just going out and doing collapse testing like they do on a Dominator. If these people are so scared to death of doing a collapse test on a glider that they call reflex, or gliders that they're selling to students, if they're not willing to go collapse test it right in front of you, piece of cake at 30 feet off the ground, then they're obviously too scared of that glider and shouldn't be selling it to anyone, let alone you. You need to talk to someone that will put their life where their mouth is. If they're going to recommend you fly this glider, they dang well better be ready to go out and demonstrate the safety, and better have done so. Ask them for a video. If they go, oh yeah, we recommend this Mac Charger here. Go, oh, okay, cool, no problem. Yeah, send me a video of you doing the collapse testing. I want to see you pulling full frontals, trims up, yanking major asymmetric collapses, doing stall spins, everything on it. Yeah, in that Hoaxflex death trap mode. Oh, you don't have that? You've never done it? So why would you sell a glider to a student that you've never tested yourself? Ever. Zero. Think logically. If a person is promoting a glider to their students they have literally never tested, what's the competency of this person calling themselves an instructor? This big. What's their integrity level? I mean, how can they tell you to trust your life to this glider that they are not willing to trust their life to? I've actually challenged many of these people, $10,000 in cash. You bring your Hoaxflex death trap, and I'll bring my Dominator. We'll go fly through the mountains in the middle of the day in active thermic conditions at over 100-degree temperatures, and we'll see who comes back alive and keeps the $20,000. What do you say? These people won't do it because they know they're going to freaking die. But they will lie up and down and say that glider is more stable. The gear is one of the most important things to your life. So when you're searching for an instructor, if they're selling gear that's so deadly, they don't even dare test it, and nobody else, you can't find any videos of anyone else testing it in every configuration, then you don't want to buy it. These people are basically the worst instructors ever. What kind of instructor could call themselves an instructor if they're promoting to you the worst and most deadly gear in the market? Okay, so flat top, only flat top. Why? Look at the specifics. Well, I mean, if you really want to get specific, look at the video series I made of the 304 reasons competent pilots only fly flat tops. Protection from the prop, crumple zone, faceplant protection. You know, it's got to cradle you inside the harness. Think of any paramotor that has this little 1-inch, slab of bar going by your ribs. What happens when you smash in on the side? You now have a 1-inch bar of flat stock getting rammed into your ribs, and it will break your ribs and puncture your lungs and could kill you. So any paramotor you see with these bars coming up beside you, and these people call themselves an instructor, I mean, you can tell a lot about the competency of an instructor simply by looking at the gear. Look at the flat top. That comfort bar goes all the way from your armpit to your hip, just like the seats in a freaking Porsche. It has to cradle you inside your crumple zone so that when it crushes, it has enough support in your body that allows the crumple zone to crush without severely injuring you. In your car, you don't stick a metal bar in your chest and then crash with the one little metal bar in front of you. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, bad plan. So very important. Okay, so then you got things like crumple zone, absolutely life and death critical. You're running around with weight in your back, you're gonna trip and fall down. You need protection from the prop, duh. You'll even hear people arguing with protection from the prop, and they'll say stupid stuff like, oh, it's all personal preference, all the units are good, it's just personal preference. Really, what person personally prefers to chop their fingers off? Oh yes, I personally prefer, can I get one that will shred me in the prop and has shredded over 200 people in exactly the same ways for over 40 years without a single safety update? Yeah. If somebody's selling these units with these floppy little netting and a single hoop cage, again, that's the instructor's competency. Who's the worst, 5 worst, most deadly instructors in the United States? Look, skill of the pilot, skill of the students. What gear are they selling? Okay, next is where they train you. But back to the flat top for 2 seconds. Just go through the video series of the 304 reasons competent pilots only fly flat tops. Compare that to other units. Look at specific safety features. Has nothing to do with opinion and he said, she said, oh yeah, I like this unit. Who gives a crap if you like it? Does it have protection from the prop? So when you trip and fall down, is the prop gonna hit your hands and shred your fingers off? What happens when you trip and fall down? You put your hands out in front of yourself. Well, does it have a bicycle brake throttle or does it have a nice trigger throttle with grip safety in it? So when you fall down, you don't end up going full throttle. Yeah, there's things like that. Now, there's 304, so I've already done videos specifically about that. But the gear is life and death critical, so look at the gear. If you find someone acting as an instructor that is not selling flat tops and not using flat tops, you know, without a doubt, after you research the safety to the flat top, that this person is totally incompetent. Why would any competent, honest person put you on something where a minor trip and fall can smash you into the ground face first so hard it can snap your neck? Has no faceplant protection. What happens when you trip and fall? Boom! Not only do you have all the weight of the paramotor smashing into your back, but full throttle. Yeah, you got upwards of 270 pounds crushing you face first into the ground. You trip and fall. I mean, on unit like Blackhawk, Parajet, Scout, all this garbage out there, it's all Skycruiser clones, same sort of thing. But if you trip and fall down and you don't have protection from the prop, you can see prop injuries all over the internet. Now, if somebody's acting as an instructor, they darn well be putting their students on something designed to stack the odds in their favor. Okay, now, location. So you got skill of the students, skill of the instructor, the gear they're selling, and then location. Where are they training? How does training actually work? What do you do to train to actually have a really solid level of control of the glider? Well, it's very simple. You go kiting. You fly the glider like a great big kite for 25 to 60 hours until you absolutely master control of the glider. If you do not have control of the glider, it gets really ugly and it's horribly unsafe because that glider requires active piloting in the sky, and trying to launch on a glider without proper control, you'll probably end up shredding the glider and the prop and getting the lines all tangled around you. It's a total catastrophic nightmare, not to mention if they don't give you proper glider control and put you on horribly unsafe gear. I mean, I had a student in one of the last classes. He tried to train elsewhere, aviator PPG. His propeller hit him in the foot. Yeah, they tried to chuck him in the air with no ability to properly control the glider, and he falls down. The propeller hit him in the foot. Think about the competency of someone calling themselves an instructor who then encourages you not to get the safest gear, but literally tries to talk you into getting the worst and least safe gear that's so horrible it has caused countless serious injuries and deaths in the same ways over and over and over and over. So, big, huge issue. Now, back to the location. How do you train? You fly that glider like a huge kite for 25 to 60 hours. How do you fly a kite? Well, you need wind, because gliders, aircraft don't fly without wind. That's right, a Boeing 747 does not fly without airspeed. They don't. So how do you learn how to control a 747? Well, you could run it down the runway at 200 miles an hour until you build some feel with it. But it's like a paraglider. You could run down the runway at 11 miles an hour for 8 hours a day to make 11 mile an hour wind for yourself. Or you could do it the smart way where it actually works, and you can go to the proper beach where you can stand there on the beach and kite for as much as you have physical ability all day, every day, until you master the skills properly. And then you're in the right spot to knock out hundreds and hundreds of flights. Actually, one student at Super Training set the world record, 530 flights of experience in a 10-day class. Never touched a glider in his life. Graduated with 530 flights of experience. The location is critical. So unless you think you're going to be running 8 hours a day at 11 miles an hour to make your own wind, you might want to consider the location. If they're training in some field in Ohio or trying to train in Utah or some big field or grass area in Florida or anywhere but a specific beach where the wind literally blows all day long, they have no intention of training you, because you're not going to physically run for 25 to 60 hours making your own wind. Do you know what happens if you do a 10-day class in Utah? Students will barely get 2 to 4, 5 hours of actual practice max. And that's either in salty, crappy ground that's muddy and yucky, or in dusty, rocky, trashy weeds, garbage getting in your lines. It's a catastrophic nightmare. Been there, tried that, doesn't work. The location you train is absolutely critical. If an instructor doesn't know that you have to train in a place where you can actually get 25 to 60 hours of kiting time, as well as upwards of hundreds of flights of experience, if they don't know the location is critical, they don't know jack, and they're not a competent instructor, and you are not going to get any level of competency no matter how much you pay them. It's not going to happen if you don't have the right location. So you have to have absolutely the right location. Now, Another interesting thing is the lies they come up with to try and pretend that what I said isn't accurate. One of them is, oh, you can't learn to fly in Ohio by training at the beach. Okay. So they try and say that, well, here we have like twitchy, switchy winds and trashy air, and it's not the same as kiting in laminar beach flow at the beach. Okay, think about that. Use some intelligence. Let's put some logic to this. Did they just admit they're going to train you in trashy, rotary, garbage air? Wait a second. They're going to train you in trashy, garbage air? Really? How's that going to go? Okay. Or then you ask them, so wait a second, when I go flying, you're going to put me up in horribly trashy rotary air for my first flights? Oh, no, we only fly in perfectly smooth air. Wait a second. If it's perfectly smooth air at the beach, which it's not, then what's the difference between perfectly smooth air there, if you can only do it there, and perfectly smooth air at the beach? See, they can't keep their lies straight. Dishonest people are not smart enough to understand the sheer stupidity of their lies. It doesn't work. You can't kite in Ohio. Because imagine tying a kite to the bumper of your car. How long is it gonna just sit there and fly in Ohio? It's not. You might be able to get it up for 15 minutes every 7th day on every 5th Monday. It might stay there for a little bit, but it's not gonna. Like at the beach, you could literally tie a kite to the bumper of your car and just leave it there all day. And at the end of the day, you pull your kite back down. It just stays there because you have wind. Now, if you don't have that all day wind, you have to make the wind by running. Are you going to run 11 miles an hour? Now, what's the difference between launching in wind and launching in zero wind? What's the difference in skill? The speed at which your feet move. Your glider is going to launch at about 11 miles an hour, a little over 11 miles an hour. It doesn't matter if you are in Timbuktu, Alaska, Hawaii, Jamaica, or New Zealand. You need the same airspeed. If there's zero wind, your feet are going to move over 11 miles an hour. If you have wind, you're going to move your feet, whatever the difference is between the wind and that 11 miles an hour. So if you don't have wind, you're just going to be running and running and running and running. Okay, let's go back to the lies. You can't learn how to fly in Virginia by training at the beach. Okay. How are you going to get flights in some field in the middle of Michigan or Chicago? Think about it. Okay, so then you ask these people, well, when's it safe to fly here? Oh, well, we can only fly in perfectly smooth air, which is usually, early morning or like the last few minutes of evening. Think about it. Logically, use your brain, because logic and reason is so effective to come up with an intelligent conclusion. They just admitted you can only fly for a short time early in the morning and late in the evening. Demonstrates their total lack of competency, but that's a different subject. Let's get back to how many flights are you going to get in that little half hour in the morning and half hour in the evening? Compared to at the beach, where you can fly all day, every day, and knock out upwards of 530 flights. Which instructor is going to be more competent? The guy that you go to and chucks you in the air without any ability to control the glider, and you only got in the air a couple of times because you could only be allowed to fly early in the morning and late in the evening, and only in perfect 7-mile-an-hour wind, and only if it's exactly right and coming from exactly the right direction. There's so many variables. You go to these incompetent instructors, you're not going to get any experience. I challenge anyone out there to show me another training school showing their students getting hundreds of flights, hundreds, like you see at super training. watch the videos. The location is critical. Another reason you got to go to the beach, the right beach for training, is so that you can knock out hundreds of flights. We literally come training or flying days, we'll go out at the crack of dawn and come back after dark. All freaking day. You literally can fly as much as you are physically able. That is how you build skills. It takes practice. You cannot compare the practice of sunrise to sunset and everything in between to 15 minutes, half hour in the morning and a 15 minutes, half hour in the evening, maybe on every seventh day when the wind just happened to be just right, maybe. Because you couldn't really do it in no wind. Yeah, that didn't work. They got to have you in perfect wind. Again, location is so critical. You can tell the competency of an instructor by the location. If they're trying to train in Utah, they are not an instructor. They don't know jack from yak, because there's no way you are not going to come out of there with hundreds and hundreds of flights of experience. It's not going to happen. On top of 25 to 60 hours of glider control to actually master glider control. That's why so many people talk crap about super training. And think of that one. Somebody who's talking crap only talks crap because they don't have anything intelligent to say. How do you refute the facts of super student knocking out 530 flights of experience? Or another student knocking out 271 flights in one day at super training? Show me any other school where a student got 271 flights in their entire class, let alone in one day. Location. You have to have the perfect location. There's a reason I drive 1,500 miles from where I'm at to the perfect location so that you can get the absolute most amount of practice possible. So again, let's recap. Who are the 5 worst instructors in the United States? Well, it's the guy who doesn't have even the most basic skills. He can't even do what super students do. You won't find a single video of any of his students getting any real amount of flights or doing what super students do. You won't see them on proper gear. They won't be flying a flat top, and they won't be flying the safest glider, and they won't have a reserve and all the odds stacked in their favor, and they won't be in the best location. If all of these are against them, they are basically the worst instructor in the United States. Absolutely horrible, terrible. They have no intention whatsoever of actually training you to be a real pilot. Use your head, use your brain, research the facts, compare skill against skill, not opinion against opinion, skill against skill. Compare safety features of the flat top, specifically against total horrible units like the Parajet. Look at the 304 reasons the flat top is the safest unit on the market. Watch the video. Go through specifics one at a time. It's not about, it's the best because I said so. Look at the specifics. There's literally hundreds of them. Compare Unit A to Unit B. Either it has the safety features or it doesn't. If it doesn't, what do you think's going to happen when that problem happens? You can watch people die all over YouTube, literally flying straight and level, and all of a sudden their brake toggle goes in the prop because they got a stupid single hoop cage with no real protection from the prop. Brake toggle goes in a prop, locks up in the reduction, locks you into a face down spiral, bam, you're dead. So can you call an instructor competent who's selling that type of unit? No. Then you watch a girl try and do a launch from her instructor on the gear the instructor put her on. She trips and falls down, puts her hands out to catch herself, and boom, the prop chops off her fingers, shreds her hand in the prop. Can you call that instructor competent? Or anyone selling gear like that with a super flimsy single hoop cage and floppy, crappy netting, as opposed to a flat top that is so strong you can jump up and down in the netting. It's very simple basics. Look at the facts, Compare facts for facts. Don't be emotional. Go, oh, I don't like how you said something. I feel bad about it. Who gives a crap about feelings? This is aviation. If you don't have the mental stability to set feelings aside and focus on facts, you shouldn't be in the sport. This is Superdell. Use your brain, get the information, and then when you realize you cannot refute a single fact I've shared here, the logic is obvious, the facts are sound, and the evidence is everywhere. So you got one choice. Call 800-707-2525 and just sign up for super training and do it right.